So what I'd like to do is kind of go through these topics by looking at where you find them on the website. So you go to For Churches, Administration, and then Human Resources.
Okay.
And we can talk about this later. This is about the current client coverages and plans. But we actually have out here a step-by-step process, plus a lot of templates that should be able to help you in this process. So if you go to the diocese recommended hiring process, this says, first of all, you determine what you need, a job description, and you can read through this. I'm not going to go through because we're all educated people that could read through. And then there's links in here. And then what are the steps? How do you conduct a reference check for a child or youth worker? There's sample questions out there. You should always have a written offer letter, and there's a template for you to use on that. And then the background requirements, and then ideas for when they're onboarding on the first day. Be sure you've got the background request, the I-9, the federal W-4, direct deposit information, all those kinds of things that a new employee, it's just kind of little reminders and like a checklist for that. Okay, now, so that's here. W-2 or 1099. This is very important if you're looking at hiring someone. So a W-2 is an employee, a 1099 is an independent contractor. So sometimes we think people are 1099s when they're really W-2s. And one of our churches did get in some difficulty with this because they were treating an organist as a 1099. So it's like, well, how do I know which one they are? So here are factors that tend to indicate employee status. Again, you don't have to memorize these. They're all right here. And so it lines out. And I think this is really the easiest one down here, is if they answer yes to any of these questions, they're probably an employee. Do we tell them how, when, and where the work is performed? Do we determine the number of hours? Do we tell them the work they are to be performed, how we're going to pay them, and if we're paying any of their business expenses? But it also tells you up here, for example, that if you're providing all the tools and equipment. So for example, an organist, they have to be there at a specific time to do your church services, and they use your organ normally. And so they are definitely an employee. Someone who may not be an employee would be like a sexton. If you tell them their job is to clean the church and they can clean it on Thursday, Tuesday, Wednesday, morning, noon, or night, that's more of a 1099. Yes, you do tell them we need the church cleaned and what our specifications are, the upstairs, downstairs, and we tell them if they're not doing it right, type thing. But we are not telling them you show up at this time and this is the way you mop a floor and this is the way you vacuum, type thing. So hopefully.
Larry has a question.
Yes.
And I do, and this is very helpful. This is really why I want to do that. So we do have a part-time organist, so that's very helpful. We also, and a lot of churches have this in their music team, we have some vocalists that receive a set stipend every time they're there, and they are required to be there at a certain time on Sunday. In the past, we have not had any contracts, anything like that. Should we, so it seems to me under this definition, they are also employees along with the organist. Should we have letters of agreement of employment for vocalists in our choir?
Well, so we have some of that at our church as well, but the situation would be that they would be employees. There's probably not going to be tax withheld because they are such a small amount of wage. So I don't know that you, and if they're long-term people that stay there all the time, we tend to have music students that kind of move through the process.
Right.
So we don't have real letter of agreement in writing for them. But it's more if they show, they show up, they sing, they get paid. So that's probably one of those, yeah, technically you should have an application, run it back, all that. But I would suggest that if they're going to be long-term people that are on staff, if you will, yes. But if it's like ours, they kind of come and go based on their school schedule, would not need that. But you should have I-9s on them, which I need to remind my husband. But yeah,
I have
so
a
that
question.
does bring us to.
I have a question, Elaine.
Yes,
We do not have a sexton.
okay,
I'm serving as bishop's warden, junior warden, because we're without a junior warden right now. We do have a cleaning service.
mhm,
They are a company that we have an agreement with, and it's not a written agreement, it's an oral agreement. Do we need to have give them a 1099? They're responsible for paying their employees who come to do the cleaning at our church. So they do all the tax stuff. We
right,
just pay the bill every
right.
month.
So when it's a company like that, you do not need to do a 1099.
Okay.
But only, you're paying the cleaning service. A 1099 is when you are, quote, hiring individuals
Using
with their social
individuals, okay.
security number, and they're not a corporation
Okay,
or anything like that.
all right.
Good question, though. Okay, moving on to, so this, I'm just going to show you, like I say, we should have an application on people. And our HR committee pointed out it's important. So that is your provision for having a signature of the employee in your paper file, if you will. So this is a template you're welcome to use. It's just generic. You can pull one off the internet if you want. But what I would do is just take this and change it to the name of your church. Excuse me. And then it kind of covers the different things that would be on an application. So it's an easy way that you don't have to make up your own. All right. If you're doing a child youth worker, most of the stuff I steal from other places. This is good questions to ask the references for people who are going to be working with children or youth. So when you're going to call that reference, what are you going to ask them? Pardon me. These would be good questions. It's not all inclusive, it's just a helpful aid. I mentioned a written offer letter. This is, again, a template. Nothing magic about it, but just does give you some of the key points to consider or to include. So the background and prevention requirements are out here. They're kind of in we're waiting to get final from General Convention with everything, but this is what we have out there right now. So depending on what you're hiring, let's say you're doing a nursery worker, the screen will tell you that you don't really need credit bureau on them or a motor vehicle, but you should have a criminal background run, and you should also have checked the sexual offender registry, but this asterisk means that that is done under the criminal automatically. And then these were the courses of safeguarding online that we previously have used. We now, and I'll talk a little bit about the new courses that we have coming. So this screen will need to be updated once we have all that information. So if you want to request a background check, those come through me at the diocese. So you go out here and you click on download doc, and then it'll come up and kind of looks like this. And you fill that out and it's got the directions and send that in with the payment based on if you're doing the criminal, the credit, or the motor vehicle. The 10-year background is only when we're looking at clergy, because the 10-year background is more about prior bishops and that type of background information. So you won't see this being used very often. And Emily and I were in conversation, even while she's on vacation, as today, we're probably going to need to revise this again as well. Okay.
So Elaine,
Yes.
that's for employees. You know, a lot of people that work with kids in a parish are volunteers.
Right.
That same background check needs to be done for them. Is that correct?
Yes, that
Yeah.
is correct. And that is important.
Yeah.
Let me see, I'm trying to get out of here. Because volunteers as well as employees,
Okay.
depending
But
on what they're doing.
that would be youth ministers, that would be
Mhm.
children's catechesis. Okay.
All righty. Okay, let me do this. Close. Go back. There we go. All right. Are you seeing that, or I've stopped sharing probably? Let me go here. Share screen. Share screen, and let's see. No, that's not what I want. All right. All right. So what are you seeing now? Just me?
All of us.
All of us. Good. Okay. Well, I wonder what I was really. Okay. Now, are we back to this?
Yes.
What the
Yes,
screen?
right.
Technology is wonderful if you know what you're doing, right? But if you don't, it's a little struggle here. Okay, so we kind of talked about to the background. Now, there is also some checklists. Once you bring a new hire on, there's a layer clergy. These are produced by CPG. We have the lay one on our website, and Chaz Marks, who helps us with onboarding clergy employees, he would be more involved in helping with that one. Okay, now I'd like, oh no, I can't go there. Let's see. Share. All right, okay. Are you with me? Are we back to the website that you're seeing, like here, the lay employee? No. What are you seeing now?
We still see the slides.
Okay,
You're sharing only one application. You're not sharing your screen. Remember, we looked at that one
okay,
today.
so I'm gonna start all over and stop share. And I need to go here and go share screen, and go to here and say share.
Yep.
I get it?
Yes.
Hiring and
Yes.
staffing?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
great, thank you. Okay, so we also have out here, this is the new hire checklist for lay employee, this first, but that would be, you can just go out here, you can go to CPG, it's like, okay, did you check off these coverages? And again, another good reminder. But the diocesan staff handbook that we have out here, this is designed for our staff, but it can also be used as a template for the churches. So if you want a Word template, you can contact me and we can send it out. But this is like a PDF form and we've just updated it. There's 22 pages to it. You can pick and choose the pieces and parts you want to use and make it your own. But it is important, especially when you have employee staff in an office, and that it does cover like soup to nuts. When you go, I'll just get to the right here. Table of contents. There's general information, the purpose, but then it tells you different things you should be able to include in yours. It'll be, you need to make it for your workplace, but this is a good template to, you know, pick and choose and go through and work with that. Has that been going okay for you, Ron, now that you guys are working on that?
Yes, it's a good template. Needs to be tailored to each individual congregation, I think.
Right. Yes, totally. Okay, so now, no, let's see. I'm gonna share screen and go back here and share. Okay. So we have covered most of that. I'm going to go into the benefits. Well, that's the staff handbook. Okay. So Safe Church, I've got that coming up later, and the letter of agreements will show you. Okay, so that's pretty much of bringing a person, an employee on. Then the question always is what are the benefits? Who gets what? When do I need to sign them up for this and that? So lay pension is, think of 20 hours or more per week, 1,000 hours a year. If they work at least 20 hours a week, they definitely are eligible for pension. So that's a key thing. And what is pension? There's two plans. Your church could adopt one or both. If you don't know which one yours has, let me know. I can go back and look that up. But the defined benefit is a 9% contribution. And a defined benefit, you put in X amount of dollars, and at age 65 or whatever the retirement is, it's going to be worth X amount of dollars to the employee. It's the clergy pension is a defined benefit, but a newer way is defined contribution. And that is normally where the church puts in 5% and then up to a 4% match of the employee contribution. So if an employee says, hey, I want to put 3% into my into this, which is really like a 403B, they can do a 4% into that, or 3%. You would do 5% plus 3%. You match what their contribution is, but everybody gets the 5%. Now, some of our churches have said, well, we'll give 9% since we're given 9% already on the defined benefit. The difference is the employee under defined contribution has immediate vesting, if you will. We're under defined benefit. It is a 5 years before they're fully vested. And the defined contribution allows them to select the investment. It's through Fidelity. So most of you are familiar with Fidelity. So they can kind of choose where they want their money to go. And when they leave, they take it with them. Defined benefit would be frozen when they leave if they're vested and not available until their retirement age. So back in the days when we all worked for the same employer for 30 years, defined benefit was very attractive. But when you have people who are maybe working a second career or less hours, or they're not going to stay around, they may only work here for 8 years and then move to something else, or 3 years. The new generations, they continue to move. The defined contribution is a much more popular choice, but the organization chooses which one. And for a while, they were not allowing you to offer both. We just recently did adopt the defined contribution for the diocesan employees. So the current employees can stay on the defined benefit, and the new ones can come in on the defined contribution. And those that are on defined benefit, they can choose to switch over to defined contribution, but their defined benefit would be frozen where it is. It doesn't move. Okay, clergy pension. This changed in January of 2019, I believe it is. Clergies are W-2 employees, and as long as they have 5 consecutive months planned, they are eligible for the pension. 5 consecutive months of work. You can also get an exception to this to make it for a lesser amount. If they have a letter of agreement, then you're going to pay clergy pension. And as most of you know, it's 18%. This is much more beneficial to those who work as a part-time clergy and also, bivocational clergy, because before there was other restrictions and they were not having any pension benefit. So this is very good. Medical parity, and we talk about, who gets what on medical insurance. So medical is available as long as they are scheduled to work 20 hours or more per week or 1,000 hours a year, but that is at employee cost. Okay. If they're at 1,500 hours, then it's mandatory to offer it to the clergy and the lay. And the parity piece is that you have to treat both clergy and lay the same. So if you are going to pay for family coverage for a clergy person, you need to offer that to the eligible lay people, which would be at the 1,500 hours. Now, many of our churches do not have staff that work the 1,500 hours mandatory. So in that point, you can offer the clergy family coverage because you don't have the lay, but as soon as you bring a lay person on that's working 30 hours or more a week, then you're going to need to offer them family coverage as well. Is that clear to everybody? Okay. The dental and disability is available. That's usually at employee cost. But again, you can choose to do something different with that, but then just be sure you're treating people equally. Hopefully most of you know, group life insurance provided by the diocese, $50,000 for active clergy, and that's got some definition with it, and $3,000 for retired clergy. So when I indicate like a definition, like the retired clergy, they have to, they have to have retired from our diocese, not from another diocese, and they move in, then they don't get, that's just one example, but there is a definition. And if you want clarification, I can get that to you. For lay people, as long as they're working at least 20 hours or more per week or 1,000 hours a year, then they are eligible for the 25,000. But it's very, very important, and I'm going to go to how to enroll, that I am notified when you bring an employee on for that group life. So for example, you bring an employee on that's working 22 hours a week, a lay person, and you don't tell the diocese, you're just doing your thing over there, and 30 days pass. And then you think, oh, I need to get them enrolled in pension. And I also need to, let the diocese know, because I will help you enroll them in the pension. You can have an administrator at your location do that. However, you don't do it very often. And unless you've got a full staff and a consistent administrator, it's better just to call me and let me help you take care of that. But if you pass that 30 days of employment, and don't let us know, the group life they have to qualify for medically. And in most cases, people are healthy, maybe, so it's okay. But if they're not, they will not ever get that 25,000 of group life. So that's why it's important to notify me when you bring on someone that's going to be scheduled to work at least 20 hours a week. Get them enrolled in pension, and also get them the group life insurance. Okay, the checklist I've already kind of talked to you about, that's out there. It gives you a little what you have to do in 30 days, 60 days. There is like disability, I think you have up to 60 days to notify, but let's just get it done in the first 30 and then you don't have to worry about it. The website has current, let me go out here. their current plans. I referred to this a little bit earlier. Am I sharing my whole screen? No? I can't do this at the bottom. Okay. I'll go back to that in just a second. Okay. Annual enrollment occurs in October, November of each year, and that's for the medical and dental. So we also have a life change event provision that I just want to be sure people understand, because people are like, well, we can't do anything about that except annual enrollment, and that's not always true. Let's say you have an employee and their spouse is employed somewhere and they lose their benefits or job, their spouse does. They can enroll their spouse onto our medical plan. If they're participating, they can add them on midterm. So it's called a life change event. You might also have that in a divorce situation. Our employee is on their spouse's insurance and they go through a divorce and it's June. Well, open enrollment is not until October, November. We can provide coverage for that employee starting the first of the month following when we know the life change event has happened. So that's just a good thing to be aware of. Okay, employee changes, compensation and hours. So now we used to fill out a lot of paper forms, but now much of it is online, and they've now changed it. Instead of employee roster, they call it My Administrative Portal, which is MAP. You don't probably need to deal with it. Your administrator can, or in most cases, probably in 45 of the 48, contact me and I'll help you with that. And this, the 20 hours or more, it drives their coverage, benefit billing. I was talking about you can't backdate the coverage. You need to have proof of insurability if you go past that 30 days. And if someone leaves and they leave and you forget to tell me, we're still paying that group life premium. And you go 3 months down the road and you tell me, we can terminate it then, but we do not get a refund or any credit for that. Okay, next is Safe Church, Safe Communities. Told you this is what's replacing safeguarding online. These are also online courses. So the new website is Presidium. What happened is the safeguarding company was Presidium, but we went to it through Safeguarding Online, and now we go through Presidium Academy. They changed the website at the same time we're changing our courses, meaning it kind of made which is change, keeping track of what's changing. So under the new Safe Church, Safe Communities, there are going to be these courses. And the one of Meet Sam and the ministry, sexual harassment, and all of those will be going away. That was supposed to happen at the end of last year, but the new courses weren't available. So now the new courses, there's all but 1 or 2 of these out there online currently. And so we're starting to move ahead. So for example, let's just say that I'm having people take some of the other courses that are out there, but as we move forward, these will be the only ones we'll be taking other than some specified camp courses that are directed to youth. So, and the way we do it now is you can have an administrator or what they call a senior officer at your church, or just let me know the name and their email and what position they are applying for, and I will send them an invitation to go to this website to take these courses. So that's really all is on the responsibility on your side. Any questions?
Elaine,
Yes, Larry.
so let's talk about children's ministry. We have a children's ministry team.
Right.
And I know all of them went through the old courses. let's talk about volunteers first. Should volunteers who are working with children or youth do this on a periodic period, or is this good for life? For lack of
Well,
better-
and that's a good question. And so what has happened is General Convention has moved this to the Episcopal Church to oversee this program.
Right.
And so General Convention, due to the postponement and all of that, but this General Convention, they're supposed to announce everything being finalized. And so they have put together two things, one on safe church, safe communities for youth and children, and the other one is going to be for vulnerable adults.
Sure.
And the little thing is out there. I'm hoping that, and then each church, so supposedly these are going to be the courses for what they call universal training, that all will be required within the form that they establish to take. And then each diocese will be able to formulate their own. So 5 years is sort of what I'm thinking the renewal. It might be 3 or 5 years. Our old process was 5, I believe. But I think what the General Church Task Force is recommending 3. So we may go with that. But yes, volunteers, it's very important that they do take those courses.
I'm also thinking of Eucharistic ministers that are sent out at the end of Eucharist and visit vulnerable adults either at home or sometimes in a facility. So the same kind of thought is because
Yes,
they should be doing the vulnerable adult stuff, and probably a good rule of practice is every 3 years.
right. So those
okay.
are Eucharistic visitors, and to be licensed, there are requirements for that.
Right.
And right now, so one of the things I have been suggesting in this interim, which is an old course that I like a lot, is recognizing abuse and neglect in the elderly. And it is still out there on the website. But it's very good. You can, if they're being deprived of food or care or facilities, if they go to the home and figure out. We have a church member who's had a stroke and the hospital has released her, but there's concern that she's able to live alone. And so we have set up a little committee within our little group within our church that they're going to make visits to her and trying to get the son involved, who's not local, to help care for this woman because she does not appear to be self-sufficient. So there's a lot of times you can come up with things that you find that, and again, these Eucharistic visitors can see that. So that's good. Hi, Ann Kyle.
Hi,
you have
I'm
a
sorry that I
question?
was, yes, I'm sorry I was late.
That's okay.
Many moons ago, I was one of the instructors for what is now called Safe Church and Safe Communities when we always did them in person.
Right.
And one of the things I'm wondering now that it's all online, is it possible for me to lead a group of people in person through this with it up on the big screen? Because there are a lot of folks in my congregations who I know would receive this better and get a better handle on it in a group where we could all be talking.
Yeah, I will verify that, but I think there is going to be some. In fact, they said there's going to be 2 train the trainers from the diocese initially. And that's a question I have for them. Are we going to have, because we did used to have train the trainer, and then we'd have 2 people to do these in live sessions. And especially when we're going to have vestry and everybody take a lot of these, it would be good to do it as a group. The reason we kind of switched to the online is just to get better attendance and participation, because when you hold a session, it's on a Saturday they can't be there, and then you hold the next one and that doesn't work with them for the evening, and so it's hard to get them all.
Yeah.
But I think live is good. too.
Good. I really do too. And I was in the first group of Train the Trainers that John McCann led when we were saying way off yonder down in West Plains, you got to let us do this. We can't get our
Yes.
peeps to you. So yeah, that'll be good.
Yeah, because otherwise the transportation too and all of that. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so
Elaine?
like I said, this is still work in progress, but that's a great clarification. And one of the things so this is supposed to be universal. These are supposed to be shorter courses, about 20 minutes. I've taken a couple of them. The presiding bishop presents in some of them. So it'll be interesting as they continue to have to update these courses. Any other questions on this or anything else we've covered?
Elaine, you mentioned vestry. Are you going to specify which of these each vestry person needs to have taken? Or
Yeah,
is it,
so I have mixed feelings on this. The intent of, I think what they have is that they all take all of these courses,
okay,
including Altar Guild and all of that. Well, I think they all are good courses,
sure,
but when you have volunteers getting their commitment to sit there and go through, 4 and 5 hours of this
right,
might be difficult. And what do? Do we say you can't volunteer? Probably
Right.
not.
Sure.
So that's where we've got to come together as a diocese with a group and say what we want to do as the minimum standard.
okay. So we can expect more information then from you.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And I was really hoping we'd have this. We're kind of dependent on them, but after General Convention, I really think because they only had like 2 courses out there, and in the last 30 days, they've added like 4 more. So they're ramping it up because they want to be complete by General Convention, I believe.
Okay,
Because this has been 3 to 4 years in the making, plus delays. Thank you.
thank you.
Okay, the next thing I was going to touch on is Episcopal payroll services. A lot of our churches have issues with payroll, and especially the bigger ones. And if you've got an outside payroll firm, I would really recommend you consider the Episcopal payroll services. We converted to this at the diocese in 2014, and it has been wonderful. With like 16 employees, paying them once a month, our cost on this is about $58 a month. And they do you have to set it up first where your employees and what their pay is and what their tax form is. They take care of it all. They do the quarterly reports. They send the W-2s at the end of the year. There's a little charge for that, but it is so well worth it. So basically, because if we go through Episcopal payroll service, it's 75% off of the regular ADP payroll. The contact we have now is Christopher, and his information is there. I have not worked with him. We used to have someone in CPG that we worked with, and then they just basically explained it and referred you to ADP. So this is the contact, and I made one inquiry to him, and in 2 days he followed up after he had given me the answer. He had given me the answer fast, and 2 days later he followed up and said, do you need anything more for the issue you were discussing? So I was quite impressed by that. So now if you have one employee, it might not be something you want to do. I think they have 2 different ways you can do this. But for our bigger churches, if you're using an outside payroll service, I would suggest you at least check this out. It saves a lot of headaches and deadlines and penalties if you're not on time in reporting. The next thing, as I said, this isn't really HR, but I work with our property and casualty, workers' comp, and auto insurance.
No, Ron's got a
church.
question.
Yes, sorry. Yes, Ron.
Elaine, back to the Episcopal payroll service.
Yes.
Clarify again, the $58 per month, is that for the church or for each employee that's covered?
Well,
or?
no, that's what we pay at the diocese. We have like 15 to 16 employees. We pay once a month. And so the real charge is whatever and we pay only 25% of it, which equals out to $58. So our fee for them to do all the work for 16 and 15 to 16 employees is $58 a month.
Hmm.
That's one payroll a month. Now, if you're doing 2 payrolls a month, I verified this, it doesn't mean it's double that amount. It's just a different factor. So it might be, whenever I called them, they said it might be like $80 a month. But that includes all the quarterly reporting. But what I would do is call this Christopher and tell him your scenario that you have. I have 8 employees, we pay bi-monthly, and see what he recommends and can work out for you. I don't know what local payroll services accounting firms are paying, but this is so good because and then, for example, if you give employees raises, you just, each month, all I do is I go in, at the run payroll, and if there's any changes, or they do your RSVP, we have company cars, so sometimes there's a fringe benefit there. I just input the changes and they process it. So it's very slick. Now, if you're using ACS and that, you do have to go over and enter like how much was clergy payroll and how much was, however you divide that out. So there is some entry once they do it, but we've got everybody on automatic deposit, which hopefully direct deposit, I should say, into their checking account. So it just works wonderfully.
One other thing, Elaine, and
Yes.
would they then also forward payments to Fidelity as an example for the 403B plan?
They do not forward those. What you do put in there, how much to withhold out of the employee's paycheck. Say you're doing a $200 a month contribution. So we put that in there under the column. Then I just go online to Fidelity and it's all automated. And then I just say the money goes into that. So I do put the money over to Fidelity, but they withhold it.
Okay, thank you.
I was trying to think if there's anything. No, that's the only thing I do. Yeah. Okay. Church insurance. So this came up and I didn't even know this was the easiest way to get to it. So I thought I got to tell other people. In fact, I think, Ann, it was when you and I were talking. You can get to bits and pieces of church insurance through CPG, but if you put in churchinsurance.org, it will drive you to a page within CPG that gives you a lot of information about church insurance and phone numbers to contact for service claims, because I have a little blue magnet from way back when, and I've got it written down, the commercial claim. When you have a claim, who do you call? But if you're not working with it very often and you have a windstorm, where do I call? And so this churchinsurance.org has got a lot of good information in it. So, and again, it's through CPG. And I was like, how did you get that good website when, because you'd think everybody would want churchinsurance.org, but it's cool. We got it, and that's it. Many of you may know Ken Jacobson. He's our VP of Client Services. He is now back on the road again as of April. Was COVID retained at home. So he's been out and about and is very good at working with your vestries or any questions you might have. He and I met a couple weeks ago, and he did give me June as our commercial property renewal. And there is going to be a slight increase. I think it was an average of 5%, but also all the coverages are being increased because of inflation and cost of construction and so forth. So I have that information by church and what claim history has been by church. But it all looked appropriate to me as I went through it. And I don't want to go into all that here, but if somebody has questions or your vestry has an interest in knowing, let me know. But they've done good work for us.
I just want to complement them. We've Mary Magdalene, all of our heating in the church and education wing is electric. And so we have these heat pumps outside, and not since I've been there, but twice they have been vandalized for copper. The church insurance company was really wonderful in terms of very quickly offering us payment to replace those units. And then we put additional security things on it, but I can't say enough good things about them.
Yeah, they are. They do a really good job, and are always willing to come
Mhm.
check it out. Okay, that is really what I had planned to go through. I'm willing to entertain any other questions, or if there's topics you were hoping to hear about that you didn't hear about, please speak up. Nothing? I will follow up on a few of these things, and then I would suppose that as soon as the church safe communities is finalized and we have a group that determines, we will have a separate training on that for all the churches. Yes, Ron Keel, did you have a question?
No, I'm just giving
Oh.
you an applause.
Oh, I see it. Thank you, thank you.
Nice
I do see
job.
Peter has a question.
Hi, Elaine. Yes, thank you. And I apologize for coming on late, and I missed probably your opening slides. Does performance reviews fall into any of this?
Good question.
I mean, okay, are you speaking lay or clergy or both, or?
Well, it's a good question. I was thinking lay, but I guess now that you mentioned
Right.
clergy.
Mhm.
So, for example, we have a staff handbook, and in there it says there will be periodic performance reviews. As far as, I do not have any templates for that. Is that what you're maybe looking at? Is what kind of template would be appropriate to use?
I think that's part of it, but when you look at the whole process of what is the review? What are the components of the review? How does one challenge a review, or respond to a review?
Right,
If there are issues with it?
right. That's a good point. We do not have any. So obviously it would depend on the job position. And so then you'd have a job description, and then on how you evaluate that they're doing those responsibilities. So it's somewhat unique, but you could do a general one of meets expectations and so forth. But I would need to, I don't know, does any of the clergy that's on have something like that in place at your location that you're familiar? No, okay.
No, but I think Peter has raised a very good question.
Yes,
I know in some Episcopal dioceses, there is an expectation that a director or a priest in charge does have a regular review with the vestry. And the purpose of it is to have some form of local accountability. I don't think we have that, but Christy was originally, before we were here, we were in Diocese of LA. I think they may have had something like that, but I think it would be very beneficial for the clergy.
okay. So for the clergy, we do have what we call the mutual ministry review.
Right.
And that, but it's not tied to like pay raises or anything, but that is really a good tool to use just for evaluation back and forth. Let me, oh gosh.
Is that on the website, Elaine?
Yes, it's right back. I'm trying to get back to sharing again. I struggle with this. Okay, share screen. Share. Are you at the diocese website?
Mhm.
Is that showing up? So again, you go to 4 churches, administration, human resources. So this actually, Steve Rotkers and I put this together a couple years ago. So a mutual ministry review is not meant to be a performance evaluation, but it is used for the purpose of having a meeting of the minds of the vestry and the clergy as to basically what are we doing right, what can we do better at, and again, so fulfilling. Everybody does this little checklist. So meaning they rate, is it always true, generally true, not fulfilling our mission. So you have every vestry member doing this as well as, you know, the clergy. How are our worship services? So what is the vestry feeling about how things are going? So this is kind of your pre-work. And then, oh, darn it. Let me go back again. Shoot, I lost it. Okay, can you see that? Right now, mutual ministry review. Is that showing?
Nope.
We're seeing a
No,
Google
Google's
sheet.
still up.
Okay. Share screen. Screen. And I want to go to this and share. Okay, so then after everybody fills those out and gets that information together, then the senior warden would conduct this saying, you know, these are the questions we're talking about. And then you do goal setting, Christian formation, clergy warden, and they meet with the clergy and make comments on what was brought up. So that personal effect communication. Again, this is not a performance review and not intended to be that. It's about the mutual ministry of our church. How are we doing and what can we do better? And gives good feedback to both the vestry and to the rector and the leadership. Now, if I close this, so we have that, but it's not really a check sheet of like a it's not a performance, but it's really a good thing to use for mutual ministry.
And certainly it has a collaborative model
Right.
Versus in a performance review. Sometimes, unfortunately, you can kind of get into an adversarial relationship.
Right.
This is really about the leadership of the local church, which is
Right.
vestry and clergy.
Right,
Nice.
right. Elaine, is this on an individual level or group level that this type of review is done?
Right. So individually, everybody fills out those forms,
Right.
the rates them, how we're doing this. And then you tally that all together, and then you meet as a group with the senior warden. And then that's the step 2, if you will. What you want to accomplish, so we come up with this facilitated, and then you do goal setting where the senior warden, and usually it's the prior one and current, they sit down with the clergy leader to provide feedback and then go through this information on more of a,
Okay,
so it's kind of a 3-step process, but the first one you do anonymous, you do just on your own, the check sheet. So that is out there under human resources.
It takes a lot of preloading and preparation to get people who are employees of the church to understand what this is. There's a very similar process in the ELCA, and the interim pastor who preceded me at Christ and Trinity put this in place and put a mutual ministry committee in place, and then said that we had to every year do an evaluation on each employee. And our organist has been playing for us for 40 years. I mean, she was very young and now she's still a very young lady in her 60s. And the secretary's been there for over 12 years. And the sexton, I'm the new kid in the house. And it was interesting how offended they were. Like, did they think we suddenly stopped doing our job right? And so what I've been doing every year is just submitting a brief letter to the Mutual Ministry Committee and the council. So this is in the Lutheran setting, but would be the same in the Episcopal, saying that each of them is an exemplary employee and does such beautiful things in their work, and that they're collaborative, all that,
Yeah.
so that it's in there and it's being done, but they don't have to be afraid of it.
Right.
You know, if I thought she was stealing keys off the piano, I guess we'd address that, but if things are going well. I put something in well, it's a different matter, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. That's good. Good information. So I do have a thing I share with other people that are throughout other dioceses. It's a list serve, we call it, where you can put a question out there. And then if they have good ideas to send back, you know, or samples of what they're doing. So I'm going to ask for that, Peter, send it out and say, does anyone have good ideas or good samples and templates for lay employee performance? That, you know, I'm always, rather than recreating something, I'd rather steal with pride and amend it as appropriate. So I will send that out there and ask, because we really, you know, actually, as I mentioned, our handbook says that we're supposed to have annual evaluations, but prior leadership said everybody knows how they're doing. They, you know, if they're doing wrong, I tell them. If they, and I was like, you know, but everybody likes to sit down and, you know, what can I do better? I mean, I really do think it's a good thing to, and should not be dreaded. And as I always learned in the corporate world, it should not ever be a surprise. They should know before you go in there or before you sit down what they think their strengths and weaknesses might be, or if they're doing an okay job or not. You don't want to keep a file and save it until the one day and hit them with it all at one time. So, but yeah, that's good. And I don't know if any of our churches have a more formal process. So, but good suggestion. Okay, anything else? I've taken a few notes here.
I want to lift up the value of a desk manual. I came from state government before I was working for the church, and we were required to have a desk manual. And I always say that that was a document that was kept in electronic form, but they can also be handy to have in printed form if it's your parish administrator. So basically, and I never use the run over by the bus. I always use they won the lottery and they love us a lot, but they left without notice. So the person has abandoned their desk without notice, and you need whoever's going to fill in, or even who you hire next, to be able to sit down and function. It's wonderful. Both the parish secretaries at the two churches I serve have developed them. They had a little something going before I got there, but they've really formalized it. And I was sitting at Shelley's desk today because she's now part-time. She's working in the medical field as well. And I needed to find a certain thing. I just looked in the table of contents. I went to the thing and there it was. And one year during W-2 season, she was having surgery, but she had a very tidy process in that book for how she accomplished W-2s through QuickBooks, something I don't use. And I managed to do it. And, you know, I'm waiting for 7 years to pass so that there's no harms, no fouls on it. But, you know, so someone can sit down. And I think that can even be important for us as clergy to have. There's a way in which, well, I remember a million years ago as a senior warden, I didn't really know what the priest did. I didn't know what they were supposed to be doing, but they're super handy. And if someone wants a template or an example of one, I'd be happy to share it.
And how did you approach having someone, for lack of a better term, document what they do without feeling like, okay, you know, am I in trouble, or, you know, am I going to be replaced?
The best way to do it, and in the setting I'm in, it was easier because both of the secretaries are part-time. So there's always times that I'm in the office and they are not,
Mm.
or they're on vacation, or they've had, you know, sick parent or something like that. It's so that I'll know what to do. You know, if well, one of them disappeared for about 2 weeks when her father was ill, and I had to produce the bulletins.
Mm.
And if we had not had that in place, I wouldn't have been able to just seamlessly do it. Now, because I have 2 secretaries, I would have slid it over to Shelley at the Episcopal Church and said, just make a bulletin that looks like this. But I didn't have to do that. It was all down in there, including
Right.
little formatting things like how I make the computer talk to the printer so it prints like a booklet like I like it to look like.
Mhm.
And little things, which paper tray to choose. Pretty granular stuff. And both of these gals were comfortable enough with me. And the one at the Lutheran Church been doing her job. She's the Baptist who taught me how to be Lutheran. So she was very confident and it wasn't going to bother her. And Shelley and I have just had such a good rapport since we've started that it worked out okay. But yes, you hit on a good point, Peter. They're going to be like, oh, well, and then I'm going to have to do time studies. You know, but it's a really good continuity of operations practice. And in the area that I worked for in the state was emergency preparedness, and we had the continuity of operations was under our umbrella. So we went out to churches and businesses and communities and talked about how you manage continuity of operations, and that's one of the pieces.
That's good information. Yeah, I
Thank you.
think a lot of us could probably do that. Even, I mean, like at the diocese, I know Gary has been trying to get us all to document everything, because when someone leaves too, just it's like, oh my gosh. But
Yeah, I
it
like the
does
way you
take
did it in
time.
practical terms, you know, of things that truly happen in life.
Mhm.
Okay, that was, and I just want to, you can see this human resources here. I just thought I was going to show you this, but this is where, do you see that on the screen? Human resources? Okay, so the plan comparison, this is where we put the information. If somebody wants to know what's the premium, what plans do we have available, it is also out here. I didn't really go into that a lot. The minimum compensation, we update that every year. And then we just updated the sample letters of agreement for the assistant clergy, interim rector, priest in charge, and rector. These are just, they were not very current and correct, I guess you'd say. So we have put some time into doing that, but nothing you all need right now. But as churches work, Chaz Marks will be helping churches with this. And this is a good thing. Okay. With that, I thank you all so much for your attention tonight and for joining us on Cinco de Mayo. Go have a margarita or whatever. And again, I appreciate it. And everyone have a great weekend too.
Thank you.
Thank you,
all.
Elaine.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks so
Elaine.
much, Elaine.
Thanks.
care.
My pleasure.
Good job.
Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.